What's going on, everybody? So today we have the true R&D team from Sergeant of Arms. Myself, Eric, I got Jace right here in the center, and then Jeff on the far end. So when data gets put out, whether it's reloading data or terminal ballistics, hunting, whatever, it's one of the three of us or all three of us that have been doing the testing on it. So today we are going to talk about muzzle velocity when it comes to predator hunting. And what is too fast, or where do you kind of start getting diminishing returns at? You look across the boards, and everybody that wants it's predator hunting wants that fastest muzzle velocity. They want that 36, 37, 4,000, whatever muzzle velocity. But what are you actually gaining ballistically? If you listen to the Facebook chat groups and stuff like that, you're flatter. Well, how much flatter? If you're at 3,600 feet per second, how much flatter are you than 35 or 34? So for those guys that are debating on, do I run like a 6 arc or a 6 creed, or a 6 arc or a 243, or do I drop in grain weight, or do I push my cartridge another 50 to 100 feet per second faster just to get a little bit more speed? What is that actually doing for you in reality? And that's what we're going to discuss today. So we've got some data. We took one bullet out of the same gun and just ran it in 100 feet per second increments to show you all what does it actually do. Because we've had this discussion numerous times between the three of us. Does it make sense to go to an AR-10 over an AR-15 cartridge, like 6 ARC versus 243, or 6 Creed versus 6 ARC, or now with the 22 ARC out, over a 22 Creed or a 22 250, stuff like that? Where does it, I think there are some places where the AR-10 definitely outshines and is needed for certain people. Mm-hmm. If you're one of the guys that's a competition hunter, and that's what you focus on, I think the AR-10 is kind of where you probably need to be because of that a little bit longer range capabilities. At that 500-yard mark, it kind of gives you a little bit better margin of error. Or you can shoot heaviers at the same speed.
I would even say, like I had a buddy I used to coyote hunt with that was from Wyoming, where the wind is always 20 miles an hour. Oh. And he was a 243 guy, and for buck in the wind,
Yeah. You run that 8 twist in a 243 and you shoot that 87 fast.
He did a lot of day hunting. It was a very windy location, a lot of long shots. Me personally, I'm not going to lug around a 243 in East Texas.
No.
I'm on a different side of the fence. I think the little small handy gun that's lightweight, that you can flip around and chase stuff and, not wear yourself out 47 times getting in and out of the truck and moving stuff around, and you want to hand it to your kids or whatever, that's kind of what I think is big attribute.
With you coming from the East Coast over the last pretty much majority of your life, that makes a lot more sense. Mm-hmm. Because hunting a lot of North Carolina where you just were, 300 yards sometimes is about as far as you're going to see in some of those places that you can, some of the fields out there, just because they're not huge openings.
Even the 900-yard fields, the next house, there's a tree line between you and the next farm, but some of those decisions need to be made a little more responsibly, like 900-yard shots at night while something's running across someone's cow pasture. Yeah. Probably not the best idea.
This side of Texas, we're just southwest of Fort Worth, is where we typically hunt over here. Been running I've ran a 6 arc for years, for last 4 years now it's been out. Ran a 22 Creed last year, and then went back to the 6 arc early this year, and then switched over to the 22 arc when it came out. I love the 6 Creed. It was a great gun. Thing's super accurate, and it killed. but it didn't kill any better than my 6 arc did.
Bullet's the bullet.
Yeah, and I'm the kind of coyote hunter, and Jace and I are usually the ones coyote hunting. Now that Jeff's out here, he'll be coyote hunting with us too. But we like to watch those dogs work in.
Absolutely.
Yes, we will take that 400-yard shot on a coyote if need be, but that's if it's trying to leave the scene. But if we want those coyotes to come running in. It's more fun for us. I mean, that's what we coyote hunt for, is to watch those dogs come blistering in on us, and also it helps. It creates better content. Just watching that dog come blistering in. So, we get to make cooler videos and stuff like that for y'all. But let's look at so all three of us are gonna have our phones out. Typically, that's not something we do during videos, but we have a bunch of data cards, and you'll see these popped up in the video. So we chose the 58 grain VMAX. It's data that we've got a ton of data on that bullet over the years. That's what we've typically hunted with out of the 6 arc. Is that one? It's a very common, popular bullet in the 6 mil range. So is the 70 Nozzler, and so is the 87 VMAX. So we just chose the 58s. So we're going to start off at 3,000 feet per second. And most coyote hunters are 300 yards and in type hunters. They don't really push past 300 yards. Some of them will, but not most of them. So at 3,000 feet per second with a 58 grain VMAX, you're looking at 9.7 inches of drop. At 400, you're at 27.8 inches. So at 300, you're still holding coyote with that 3,000 feet per second. The coyote's typically 13 inches, the body's 13 inches, so you're kind of floating that top side of the, right at the top end of the back, at the top of the back there, which is still, you're not giving up coyote. At 400,
and you're barely over halfway in your drop of the coyote at 3,000.
Yeah, you're 2 inches above half of the coyote.
You're not even risking blade running, taking a chest down low.
Yeah. At 350, you're at 17. So now you're starting to give up that coyote. Mm-hmm. You're about 4 inches above that dog's back. At 400, you're 27 inches. So now you've doubled the height of the coyote. So 3,000 feet per second, if you're under 300 yards and 3,000 feet per second, we'll do it all day long for you. Not a problem. Let's bump up to 3,100. Now we go to 8.5. So we just gained 1.2 inches of drop. Pretty good, Yeah, you're getting 1.2 inches of drop. You're just right at that. You're an inch over half of the coyote at that point. Mm-hmm. So if you take center line of coyote and go an inch above, you're going to skim its belly. So you're kind of in underneath of that back on a dog, and still being able to hit a good vital zone type shot.
Pretty easy.
At 350, you're at 15.5. So now we've kind of picked up, 2 inches of drop, almost 2 inches of drop at 350. So I think that's a pretty good jump right there of picking up 1.2 inches at 300 and almost 2 inches at 350 yards. At 400, you picked up 2.8 inches. It's at 25 inches of drop. So
nearly 3 inches, probably not quite a third of the dog.
Yeah. So, making that 100 foot per second jump there definitely gained you a good little bit of external ballistics and practicality use as far as the ballistics go. 3,200, now you go to 7.4 inches. Now you're half a dog. You're right there at that half of a coyote. So you can take that half center line and bump it up a little bit, and you're going to kill that coyote every time. As long as you have a good, make a good shot and you have a good gun. At 350, you're at 13.7. So at 350, now you're at the top of that back.
So this is where I think is pretty cool. Like if 13 and a half or so inches is the average coyote. That's an easy holdover reference. So if you're at 350 or you think you're at 350, just whatever the height of that coyote is, just pick it up about halfway and break that shot. And that's where most people, 300, 350, that's kind of where people cheat the game.
Well, and that's, for us, that's an easy talking point because of the reticles that we like to use. We even on our thermals, we're all still running some sort of hash mark reticle. A lot of hunters don't. A lot of them will run a dot because they want that fine point of aim. So they don't have that measuring capabilities that we all like to run. And that's why I think that the speed thing becomes such a big deal in the predator world is, one, you don't always have time to range them, especially in the past. Now, with so many thermals having built-in laser rangefinders, you put it on the dog, and it pumps out that data real fast.
But even with the little dots, you still have the visual reference. Like, as long as you pull your head out of your tail and you go, this is about the drop, you can still just kind of swag that over.
Yeah, when it's happening in a hurry, using that dog as the reference is probably your best course of action. Like, the size of that dog, giving you, what you need for your holds.
Yeah, and everybody thinks differently. Like, when I shot that dog at 426 this year, I just knew what my drop was at that distance. It was a coyote. So I went to the top. I went right to the top of his back, and held right there and shot, and that dog fell right where he stood. Knowing that data is a big thing as well as knowing what is your drop. And there's so many ballistics calculators out there that you can just download on your phone and make a good swag at it. I mean, you'll get close. Like, don't use box muzzle velocities though. They're not going to be right for your gun.
It's a lot more fun when you shoot coyotes at 1400 too.
Yeah. That was a once in a lifetime opportunity right there. But like looking at this, like at 400, you're at 22.4. That's a little over 1.5 or 2.5 inches right there, going from 25 to 22.4, 13.7, and a 7 at 350, and 7.4 at 300. That 3200 is kind of that's a good range to be at.
3250,
Yeah.
and you can kind of mentally ballpark a lot of these numbers as 8 inches, 6 to 8 inches difference. So if you just, in your mind, picture half a coyote and offset half a coyote every 50, you've kind of mastered whatever swept space you wanted.
Yep. And you're picking up 1.1 inches going in that 100 feet per second. So we picked up a little less, but now we're starting to get into that still being able to hold on the body type deal, or just a body and a half or whatnot. Inside 350. So go to 3300, and this is kind of the range that we, with the 6 arc, even like the 18s. I mean, probably a 16, you can probably get to 3300 with like a 58 grainer. I haven't.
You can push brass and get to it.
Alpha brass will get you there.
Alpha brass will easily get you there. I'm trying to see what the right limit of the alpha brass is, so we'll figure it out at some point.
But with a 100-yard zero, you're holding dead nuts to 200. At 300, you're at 6.4. So now you're under half of a mature coyote, and probably half of a young dog. And that, especially if you're hunting right now in the summertime, or you're one of those people that doesn't live where it's 100 degrees and all day long and then still 90 degrees at midnight, and you get a chance to hunt at the middle of the night, that 3,300 mark is kind of a good little spot for the guys that are out hunting the young dogs right now. Now you're at 12.2 at 350. So now you you can hold back and still kill a coyote. You're about an inch under that, and now you're at 20.2 at 400. So you're you're coyote and a half, basically. That's kind of where that's sitting at. So you picked up, another 2.2 inches at 400.
And this is where that trend picks up. It's 2 inches at 400 and
1.5 at 350 and it's right at an inch at 300.
So if you're trying to make that 6-arc length discussion or that 6-arc, I want to push my brass discussion.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? Is it not worth it?
Exactly.
It's
because after 3,300, you really, and the data will show this, but you start not picking up as much as flatness goes. Now, if you ran a high BC bullet,
not quite much more different. It is a little bit, but
Yeah.
you're talking 1/10 to 2/10 of an inch, so
yeah.
whatever.
And this is, with the 18-inch arcs, 6 or 22, and 20-inch, 18 and above, basically. 3,300 is pretty much a cakewalk to be able to get these light varmint bullets to get there. You've been shooting 18-inch 6-arc. What are your 33, 40, 33, 20? Yeah. So he's 18-inch 6-arc is just over 3,300 feet per second with not even a hard load. It's the same exact ammo that I run in my 20-inch, and he runs in the 18. We're out of Hornady brass, factory brass. We're still getting 4 to 5 reloads after the initial factory loading. So it's not hard on the brass. It's not hard on the gun. It's very reliable, easy to tune, and that's kind of what we looked at. We haven't had any issues running this load at all as far as finicky, because once you start pushing,
that's another thing. Yeah.
Once you start pushing the limits of that cartridge,
the system gets more picky.
Yeah.
You start redlining like a peak start pressure, and not all your light skinned bullets want to be oomphed, that way. But you can jump to the 6 Creed and you instantly pick up 350 feet per second.
But what does it gain you?
So
and that's the key, if you're...
Is it helping?
Is it really gaining you that much besides a cool number?
Especially if you hunt at 300. If you're 300 yards, what are we...
You're at...
Let's say 3,300 is your average swag on what we kind of run the 18-inch.
Yeah.
18 and 20-inch 6-arc 3,300's an average swag. So 6.4. Let's go to 36, 3.9, and 3.2 at 36, 3,700. So now that's 3 inches. That's 25% or so of a coyote.
Yeah.
That jump maybe matters, but your hold's still the same.
Yeah. And that's why I, kind of started this with 4 comp guys. I think the AR-10 definitely makes a lot of sense for a lot of those guys. If you're hunting the Midwest where you're hunting wide open cornfields and crop fields and hay fields and stuff like that, or you're hunting Wyoming and out west where, man, you can watch a dog come in for a mile. If you're not, if you're, man, furthest I can really see is about 300-400 yards. I don't see a reason to run an AR-10. Unless you just want a heavier gun that burns out barrels faster that costs more.
Which we concur.
Yeah. Barrels are consumables. So, now 3,400, jump up to that, that's where I run my 20-inch 6-arc. It's 3,380, 3,400. Same load. It's just, that's where my barrel shoots it at. And now I'm at 5.5. So, we've got 0.9 of an inch difference between me and, an 18 and a 20-inch and 100 feet per second.
Less than an inch.
Yeah, so we're less than an inch now, and we're picking up 100 feet per second. And this is where that really diminishing return goes of pushing that much harder. Mm-hmm. Or do I go from a 20-inch barrel to a 24-inch barrel?
Yeah, especially in an AR-15, if you're 24 inches, I mean, especially in the little 6 arcs,
Yeah.
we've, yeah, we got barrels and barrels of shenaniganry there. It's just the shorter barrels get you very similar velocities as you do the longer.
Well, yeah,
It
I mean,
just-
if you look at the Grendel case, I mean, because both arcs are built off Grendel case. We saw this with the 6.5 Grendel. Once you break that 18 to 20-inch range, the muzzle velocity per inch gain really starts to drop off. I know, and I tested Pettis' 24-inch. Mm-hmm. I grabbed the same box of ammo, ran it through my 20-inch versus his 24-inch, and he had 60 feet per second on me.
And I think my 18 to your 20 was like
80.
70 to 80. Is
Yeah,
that what it was?
yes. Yeah, 18 to 20 is about 80. Like,
So 18 to 20 got you about the same increase as 20 to 24.
yeah. So, because like I said, Jason and I've been hunting together
4
for
inches for 60 feet per second just doesn't. It's not enough for me.
Nope, I agree.
The unwieldiness of a 24-inch off a tripod, in and out of the Forerunner
Yep.
at night, like
Yeah, in and out of the doors of a vehicle, trying to put stuff in constantly, you whacking suppressors and trying to figure out how you're going to lean it. And
Well, and also, I mean, the added weight to it. Like, what do you?
Yeah,
You're
that's
carrying around more weight for 60 feet per second. 60 feet per second doesn't really even do anything for you. It looks cool on a chrono. It's about as far as that goes. When it comes to true external ballistics, 60 feet per second is not even worth the powder.
and
it doesn't matter to the coyote. It doesn't make sense on your drop numbers.
Nope.
Like, we're talking 100 feet per second for
0.9 of an inch.
1.2 to 0.9 of an inch, depending on where in this range we fall. 60 feet per second, just
Yeah, you're going to get half an inch, maybe.
I'm kind of going the other way
Yeah.
because I got kids. So how small of a package can I get it in, not hinder them?
Yeah.
The 14 and a half inch 22 arc, I didn't miss a single animal our whole Georgia trip.
Yeah.
And it's not because it's a speed demon. It's just figure out your holds and shoot that. And
Yep. And it's and it's fast enough that it did really well on pigs and coyotes.
those 80 LDX were,
Do not shoot those at coyotes.
those things are, you want to put something through a hog, those 80 LDXs will go
Yeah.
through the hog, front to back, doesn't matter.
So I mean,
400 yards.
the 3400, you said we picked up 0.9 inches at 300 at 300 yards. At 350, we picked up 1.4 inches basically. If I'm mathing right, it's a Saturday morning, so if I screwed that math up, sorry. But you're at 10.8 inches. You're under the back of a coyote at 350 yards.
And you're 2% of an overall gain. So
Yeah. At
Okay.
400,
Yeah,
it's 18.1. So you're 2.1 inches at 400. So coming back to that 2 inches, about 1.5-ish at 350, and then maybe a little under a 1. So, and this is 3400 with both arcs and the varmint bullets is very achievable out of a 20-inch barrel. I think 22 arc, like, you can get a little bit more capacity and start talking bearing surfaces and all that jazz. But 3400, like, you can get that with a 50-something grain bullet. Go to 3500, and we're 0.9 again, and it's 1.4, and it's 2. So we've kind of brought everything to a, hey, this is all I'm picking up. At 300, you're 4.6, 350, 9.4, 400, you're at 16.1.
yeah. And this is where I think that, like, pushing a cartridge just to get that other 100 foot per second when you're already, top of the back at 300, half coyote high at 350, a coyote high at 400, you're not really going to change that, drop 100, add 100 feet per second. It's kind of from 18 to 24 inches, what do we end up with? We said 140 feet per second.
Yeah.
So you've barely bought yourself a couple inches at most at 400.
And at 3,400 it was 5.5, so you're under half a dog. Hold center line on that coyote and it's dead. With that 3,400.
Whether you shoot just below center or just above center, it's still basically center.
I think if you're shooting 400 yards at night, like if you're talking anything less than 2 inches, that just kind of easily falls in the noise of all the other variables you got going on.
fair.
You can't read wind really well at night. No. I mean, you can feel it, but that's about as far as that goes. You can't,
Watch which way the dog's running in from.
Yeah. And that may help. Sometimes
That's true.
Come down the wrong wind. But if the arcs like the 6 and 22 were not a thing, say we took this back 5 years, this video, and we had the Grendel and the 223, 22 Nozzler was thing, the Valkyrie was thing. So the Valkyrie and the Nozzler, we'll go previous that. That's where the AR-10s really shine, because the AR-15 platform did not have the speed demons for that small of a cartridge that we have today. That we're, because like 223, you need that barrel length to be able to get those really fast muzzle velocities. You don't need that now.
Yeah, the small frames of that era did not have the horsepower that we have available to us today with these new cartridges.
I mean, you remember running the 85s and 90s and 95s in the 6.5 Grendel, just trying to push that thing, as hard as you can, and it's not a speed demon cartridge.
No. The Grendel, like I always say, if Grendel was made today, it'd be a 6 arc.
Yeah.
With the bullets availability that we have now in the 6 millimeters. But all right, so next muzzle velocity is going to be 3,600 feet per second. Just covered 35, and at 300 you were at 4.6 versus 3. Now you're at 3.9 inches. So 0.7 inch drop again. At 400 you're at 16.1 at 3,500 to 14.4.
1.7.
Yeah. And 350 was 9.4 to 8.3, so 1.1. This is where you start getting you're getting into that AR-10, a little bit longer barrel area than like a 20 inch. 20 inch, you can push a 20 inch up into the 36-ish range, but you're going to be probably pushing some pressure, depending on what powder and stuff you're running. And
like we saw, dropping grain weight in the 22 arc to get to 3,600 feet.
Yeah.
Those 40s did absolutely nothing on anything that was bigger than probably a gopher.
Yeah, they just those. Now I think if on the 22 arc, if you wanted to push those 40s. I think if you drop down that twist rate, slowed those RPMs up some, you'll probably get penetration out of that. But running the Sammy twist, it's just too many RPMs for those little 40s. But what's the point?
What does it matter?
Are you gaining anything? Yeah, you're gaining some flatness, but a little bit, but you're not gaining a ton. I mean, if you look at 3,600 versus 3,400, because that's what you can kind
2 inches. 2 inches at
5.5,
3.5 at 4.
It's not even 2 inches. It's about an inch and just 1.6 inches.
So again, is that where they're dropping their grain weight, losing the wind?
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly, and that's and then you're kind of limited on what bullets you can run because you slowed that twist rate up. To accommodate for those 40 grainers, when now you're kind of stuck at the really lightweight stuff. None of the factory ammo offerings for the 22 arc will shoot, and even the 62s. The 62s still needed that faster twist rate. You could probably get away with less than a 7, but not much, just because of how much longer that bullet is.
Yeah.
It's basically a 5 ELDM.
I mean, that's what we all ran in the 8 twist 223s that were 69 TMKs,
Yeah.
69s. Some of the 77 TMKs you could do in an 8 and do real well.
Yeah.
But
But you're not going to, like those 80s, or 88s, you're not going to be able to run those.
Definitely not.
The 75s, I guess you could probably run in an 8 twist and be fine with that. So you could run 75s and 62s and 8s, but I don't know if an 8 twist would be slow enough of a twist rate for those 40s.
But now throw it in a 22 Creedmoor, you probably need to stay at an 8 twist. Don't go hot rodding 7.5s and 7s like you're going to blow up a decent amount of bullets.
Yep.
Just stick with that 8 twist. Know you'll be fine from 80s on down, and you know, you probably get some pretty, well, I say probably, we got some decent groupings out of the 98 tips, out of the 8 twist.
You just
but it
bleed off
wasn't
some
distant.
BC on them.
Yeah, the distance groups is what suffered.
Yeah, if you're going to long range shoot with a 22 Creed, the 7.5 is kind of where you need to be. But in reality, if you want a long range gun in a 22 cal, I would go 22 GT over 22 Creed just for barrel life, and those 22 GTs aren't as hard on barrels.
Yeah, they were a lot easier on barrels, brass, got the same velocities. It just really wasn't.
What are you getting out of that 22 Creed 1300?
It kind of depends. So as a hunting gun, 13-ish hundred.
I think I got one to 1540 or something like that, but it wasn't run
hard at all.
10-shot strings. You know, it just wasn't pushed.
Well, that one that you killed, I think it was the first one. Jeff had been running as a hunting gun, kind of just hanging out, and it got to about 850, I think it was, and then you had to use it as a backup gun in a match, and it didn't even make it to 1,000.
No, I think I got 6 total stages out of that before it went from hammering to, blowing up bullets.
Yeah, the fire cracking on that 22 Creed, just how overboard it is horrible. But that's another discussion for another time on that one.
And we start talking about those fast big frames. Your 6 Creed, your 22 Creed. I've always likened that to a Ferrari. Everything, you don't get away with anything. It doesn't seem like to me. Your maintenance is got to be more on point. Your components, you're eating up more components. It's just like taking care of a Ferrari sports car. It's not just the initial investment. It is everything that comes after that. It just takes more to keep one up and running right.
Yep. And you figured that out on that 6 Creed Marksman.
Yes, sir.
800 rounds and was making 6 Creed belted mags because of just bore restriction. It wasn't like you didn't clean it; it's that you didn't strip it.
Yeah, I didn't strip it.
And that's the thing with the large frames is they're real bad on bore restriction.
Some of the factory ammo's made to max out the 6 Creed.
Yep.
And if you run that for 1,000 rounds, not all your lots of factory ammo is going to go the way you want it to.
Nope, Jace found that out too.
Yeah. I bought one case and went down there to QP, and it did awesome. And I thought, man, I have hit the nail here. And I bought another case, and we chrono it, and it's like 90 feet per second faster. And Pearson primers, when the temperature got up to 100 degrees that day.
It wasn't even Pearson primers at 100. We were up in, it was 50 degrees and you were Pearson primers.
Yeah.
Yuck. He went through 3 primers that match. So that's you look at those large frames and they're not as easy to keep running properly as, especially your hard. Now you get 308 or, even 6.5 Creed, they're a lot more forgiving than your overboard large frames are. But they're not near as easy as an AR-15. AR-15s are really easy. They're not as finicky. They're kind of like your everyday pickup truck. You can beat on them, you can abuse them, and they'll just kind of keep chugging along.
Shorter cases, not near as much time pressure curve.
Yep.
It just, your time under pressure, it's just
And that's why, you know,
easier to maintain.
for the average guy, I always recommend the 15s over the 10s because most of your comp guys, they're competition predator hunters are very similar to competition shooters. They're going to maintain their equipment a lot better. There's a lot more on the line than just going out and having fun with the boys on a Friday or Saturday night. You know, killing a few coyotes, killing some hogs and stuff like that. So let's jump up 3,700 here. 3,700 feet per second. You're at 3.2. That's 0.7 of an inch at 300. You're at 350, you're 7.2 versus 8.3. 1.1. 12.8 versus 14.4. So 1.6.
Yeah.
And this is where, you know,
Not even this.
it's not really. Yes, at 400 yards at 3,700 feet per second, you can hold just the top side of a coyote and you'll hit. Now, you need to be on the top of his back because you're right at that 13-inch mark.
Yeah,
So
you're going to graze a chest on the
yeah,
bottom somewhere.
So you need to be touch of daylight. If you're thermal hunting, kind of hold the high side of the white fuzz, I guess you'd call it, to be able to hit that. So even then, you're still not holding dead up on a coyote out to 400.
No.
It does shrink your swept space here, margin of error. I get that,
Not much.
but not much.
And if you just took a swag at a decent hold, instead of just holding the back, and you just kind of went, hey, half a body high, you're right near dead center of whatever your velocity happens to be.
You know,
from 3250 to 4.
Yep. And that's the thing. It's like it's not really. And this is where that whole don't go chasing the muzzle velocity rabbit hole all the time comes into play. Is it's not doing as much as people think. Like, you know, you think, oh man, I'm gonna pick up 100 feet per second, or I'm at 3,800 feet per second. That is screaming. That's a laser beam. It's not really making as big of a difference in 500-600 feet per second. Like, you would think that you would have a huge jump, but you don't. Especially once you kind of break that 3,250 to 3,300 mark, which is very achievable in a lot of small frame cartridges these days. 22 nozzle will do it. 224 Valkyrie will do it. 6 arc and 22 arc. All of them will do that 3,300 feet per second mark in an 18-inch to 20-inch barrel. You know, with the new Alpha Brass, might be able to get a 6 arc with a 58 grainer or 55 grainer into that 30, you know, pushing up in that
We're
high
still
32s.
pushing that.
Yeah, but it not recommended at all. So 3,800, it's still, you know, 2.5 versus 3.2. It's another 0.7. 7.2 versus 6.2, it's an inch. 11.3 versus 12.8, 1.5. So you're not. It's a trend, and you can see this trend go, or going through here is at what point in time. Now 400, you're at 11.3 on a hold. If a coyote's 13 inches, so that's going to give you about just under 2 inches of margin of error on your hold.
Holding the back.
Holding the back.
Still grazing the bottom if you made a perfect shot.
So you're still having to gap that back at 100 yard zero. And that's, you know, that's where that comes in. Like I said, now if you do a 200 yard zero or a 50 yard zero, that changes a lot of things for you. You can hold to 200 yards or to hold 400 yards on the back of a coyote and still make an impact. So 3,900, that gives you a 3-inch gap or 3-inch margin of error holding the top of the back on a coyote because it's 10 inches of drop. 3 inches, you know, that's not bad, you know, but it's still under 1 MOA at 400. If you're not a sub MOA shooter off of a tripod with your rifle at 400 yards, you still have a margin of error that's going to miss. You know, and some people never shoot their guns to 400 yards, whether they don't have the capabilities or the facility to do it, or they just have never thought about it. I don't know which one. So that's part of that as well. Is like, what's your gun do at 400? If you don't know, maybe find a range that does tell you, because then you can see, like, are you able to hold a sub 4-inch group at 400? Because if you're not, then you're still kind of in that same boat. And I know some people will disagree with a lot of these statements, and that's fine. Like, we don't all have to think the same. Like, but this is our way of thinking. Is, and we're running this off of data, not just how we feel. Strictly how we feel about things. But if you have an accurate gun and you are a good enough shooter, does speed really matter that much?
So 3,400 versus 3,100 on a 200-yard zero, the 62 ELDVs or VTs is 2.7 inches
Okay. So
at 400. So again, still not really. I mean, you're talking about 300 feet per second gain.
yeah.
You're not quite 3 inches at 400. You still haven't really changed your hold. You still
Not
have to
much.
give it
Yep.
that half coyote height, and it's still going to hit generally in the middle.
Now, I will, one place where speed matters, and it, no matter, faster the better a lot of times, and this will contradict some of what we're saying, is on runners.
Sometimes, and
Yeah.
bullet construction may even lead into that more, because you can take a 55 grain VMAX that's just going to absolutely decimate itself in 4 to 6 inches.
Yeah.
You can get away with a really bad shot.
Yes.
You may have to follow it up, but it'll probably be real close to where you shot it.
But when you have, you get those.
Well, I think he's talking time of flight and,
Yeah.
and cutting your leads down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Your margin of error on your lead for a runner with a fast bullet, that helps. That is one area that I will agree that speed really, really helps on for coyote hunting, is on runners. Because you see a coyote running across the field, like, what's the max coyote speed? 38 mile an hour, something like that,
Something
Jace?
like that. Yep.
So is he doing 25 miles an hour, or is he full bore doing 38 miles an hour? I don't know. He's running faster than I
Hit the
can.
radar.
Yeah, he's running faster than I can at this point. So that's where that speed really comes into play. Or that little coyote lope that they do is what, 7? It's right at 6, 7 mile an hour, I
I
believe.
think it's 7. Yeah.
Yeah.
That little low.
I mean, how many times have we seen coyotes that'll just kind of come in and they just kind of keep loping around? They never stop. 7 mile an hour, if you've never ran that in a calculator, been on that distance, that can be a pretty good lead.
400, 3.5 mils
Yeah.
at some, like, I'm just kind of playing games. You say 25.
So that's where I think speed is a key.
25 mile an hour is a 12.7 mil lead.
Yeah, how many
at
inches is that?
400.
Yeah, that's
Like-
the whole scope.
You know,
Yeah.
just put the coyote generally on the right side, and you hold
Yep.
real close to a third of the way through on the left side, and you'll be close. Good luck seeing the miss. But
So that's where speed comes into play for coyote hunters, and that once again goes back to that competition guys. They're the ones that really need that more than anybody, because one, they're going to shoot longer because there's money on the line. Two, if they get a runner, that runner can
They need to
drop it.
That needs to go in the basket.
Well, and you do carry more energy with those bigger bullets, or the bigger calibers moving faster with the same bullet. And you make a marginal shot on a runner because it's a runner, they have a better chance of dropping that coyote. But those, there's not. Yeah, there's a bunch of people that shoot hunt predator comps. There's not a whole lot of people that are hardcore dedicated, and that's all they do. There's a bunch. I mean, there is a good bit out there, but there's more pleasure hunters than there are competition hunters. You bump up to 4K, 1.4 inches versus 2. That's 0.6. So you're slowly diminishing that return on ballistics on your drop. At 350, it's 4.4 versus 5.3. So now we're at, under an inch at 350, and 8.7 versus 10. That's 1.3 inches at 400. You know, and so basically what we're getting at on this video is know your purpose of how you hunt. Figure out how you hunt, you know, and pick a cartridge and a gun that fits that. Don't just go chasing muzzle velocity because this guy or this person or that person says, hey, you gotta have X, Y, or Z speed to really be, you know, that's where you want to be on coyote hunting. It's not necessarily true. I mean, if you're 300 yard and in shooter, like if you can, in any of the AR-15, like the modern cartridges will get you there. If you're an out west guy, hey, maybe you need that because of wind and your shots are longer, stuff like that. But for most people, they don't need to carry around an AR-10 or a bigger cartridge that burns out barrels faster and requires more powder and is more finicky, more maintenance and stuff like that. It doesn't make sense for a lot of people. And like I said, I ran 22 Creed all last year. Had zero complaints about the performance of the gun. It shot really, really well. It killed everything I wanted it to. But at the end of the day, it wasn't making anything more dead. Dead's dead. The 6 arc, like I said, I ran that. I'd been running that for a couple years, and it never gave me any issues on, oh man, if I had something bigger, I'd have killed that coyote or I'd have killed that pig.
So for fun, I just ran the numbers back and forth between 3,100 and 3,400 feet per second on a runner at 400. So whether he was trotting long at 7 or sprinting at 35. Between the two, 0.3 inches every 100 yards is what you gain in your lead. Yeah. So there's less than an inch difference between 3,400 and 3,100 at 400 yards on. I mean, your ability to pretend to hold a lead correctly at that one is going to be far. Your follow-up shot is going to matter a whole lot more than the 1 inch that you made up in a lead.
Yeah.
For 300 feet per second.
And off a tripod, I really felt like I got off better follow-up shots on the 6 arc. Just minimal recoil, the smaller, lighter gun, the ease of swinging it. I mean,
thermals don't shake as much on those little recoils, so you can actually see, your bullet a lot easier. The splash.
And that's, you hadn't talked about recoil. You get less recoil, makes those follow-up shots, or you stay in the sight picture a lot better. Because on the AR-10, no. We can make a 6 Creed or a 22 Creed recoil really, really light.
Purr like a kitten.
I mean, but
you're not going to want to carry it around in the field.
No, even my 20-inch had stupid light recoil.
But
not every manufacturer's guns out there do that.
No, I mean, you might hold on to something like a Bronco.
Yeah.
But it's still, even as tame as I can get the overall travel in the reticle, you still have that sharp, quick impulse versus kind of a dull push. And in a thermal, that sharp, hard recoil changes all the pixels at once. And seeing that trace is not near as easy as that slow movement in the pixels on a smaller cartridge. It just isn't.
And we're not saying AR-10s are not a good option. But don't rule out, don't go one way or the other just because of what some people say. Look at data, figure out what works best for you in your hunting situation, and are you the only one running, or you got a kid running, or your wife or girlfriend, whoever, figure out what works best for your situation of hunting and go that route. Get you a ballistic solver. You can download Applied Ballistics. That's what we run. It's like $40. Excellent software on your phone, and you can sit there and play the game and take guesses and swags at stuff and see what works for you. If you have questions, you can always call us at the shop or send us a message on here, or email or whatever, and we'll do the best to get back to you in a timely manner. And try to help you answer those questions to get you the right tool for the job, whether it's one of our guns or not. Granted, we'd love to sell you a gun and build you one. It'd be awesome. But there's other companies out there that, make a good rifle or whatever. You got a buddy, whatever. But we want to, at least you'd be educated and informed on actual data across the board of this cartridge versus that cartridge and this versus that, than just some guy that's only really ran 1 or 2 cartridges, doesn't understand ballistics, and it's like, man, I'm getting blah 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 speed out of this. It's 300 feet per second fast, so much better. It's like a laser beam. Man, you're picking up 2 inches. It doesn't. It's not really gaining anything besides a lower barrel life, more components burned up, more ammo, factory ammo. AR-10's a little bit more expensive than like the 6 ARC, 22 ARC, but it's not a whole lot more expensive. But reloading, like 30 something, 29 to 30 grains versus 40 grains, that starts kind of adding up when powder's $400 a jug now.
Yeah.
You're paying what, $50, $60 a pound for powder these days, and primers are 10 cents a piece. So, that if you reload a lot, that starts adding up pretty fast. But get the tool that is correct for your job, in your situation, and that's why we did this video, because we've talked about this, and you see all the guys that are always pushing, 22-250, which is arguably has been the king of predator hunting for years, and will not take anything away from it.
22 Creed, right there.
Yeah, 22 Creed's right there. But with advancements in modern ammo and bullet or cartridge manufacturing, you don't really have to run those anymore for most people.
And if shameless plug, if somebody wants to make 22 GT or 6 GT varmint rounds, you'll match the Creed speeds really close. Like it gives people another good option.
Yeah.
For low recoil, small setups.
Yeah, there's a couple guys out in like Weatherford area that run the 22 GT or 6 GT.
Yeah.
So, but I said we'll kind of wrap this one up. But like I said, pick the right tool for your job. If you got questions, give us a call. So hopefully you all enjoyed this video. Something like I said we've been talking about for a while over between the 3 of us. And if you got any questions, comments, leave them in the comments section. If you want to give us a call at the shop. We'd be more than happy to try to answer any questions for you. Until then, see you on the range.